original mandate and the Great Commission, both of them, the original one that was given in Genesis chapter 1 and the Great Commission given in Matthew 28, both give us a clear understanding of what God is doing. When he created Adam and Eve, he created family that was going to steward the planet under the leadership of God's gracious leadership. And so God anointed them. He said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, take dominion. These 5 areas, we don't have time to teach them now, but I've taught them in other places. They are the original mandate given to humanity, and that mandate has never been rescinded. It was damaged because of sin, but it was restored initially through Abraham and Sarah, and then ultimately through Moses and the prophets and the kings, and then ultimately leading up to Jesus Christ himself coming to really inaugurate a new creation. His new creation began with the 12 apostles, the 70 others, the 500 who watched him ascend. But then he said, wait in Jerusalem till power comes upon you from on high. And in the process of that, the power of God came on the day of Pentecost, and the Church of Jesus Christ was born. And they had a mandate given from the start, which we call the Great Commission. Go, and what I've given you, take it to other people, raise them up, and tell them how to take it to the next generation. In other words, go make disciples, immerse them in the identity of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and train them to do everything I've commanded you. I'm with you always unto the end of the age. And so what we see is, we see in the first mandate, we see biological reproduction. Okay, what we see in the second mandate is spiritual reproduction, that we reach people for Christ. We see them be born again. We in a sense midwife their new birth, and then we bring them into the family of God, and then we develop them into those who can then turn around and give birth to the next generation of disciples. And the cycle continues, and guess what? It continued all the way to us. Who are you? Where are you living right now? We have people in South Africa. We have people that are in Taiwan. We have people that are all over the world, because this strategy that Jesus inaugurated in his Great Commission dynamic, that strategy works. Here we are carrying the kingdom out to the next generation. And so this is what we call the family model, the apostolic family model. And it's raising spiritual influence into adulthood through multiple generations until the earth is filled with the knowledge of the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. This is who we are. This is what our apostolic commandment is, but we have an apostolic methodology, which is family. Now, most churches would say, yes, we're a family. Yes, welcome to our family. Turn and say hi to your neighbor. But that's 30 seconds. That's not family, you guys. And so what we've done is differentiate between family and tribe. The public meeting, the Sunday morning meeting, or if you meet at some other time in your bigger public gatherings, that's not family per se. That's a tribal gathering. That's when we hear from our tribal chief, we sing our tribal songs, we do our tribal dances, but ultimately you can't do family in a room full of 50 people or 500 people. You have to have a smaller gathering for family to really take place, for there to be spiritual mothers and fathers who know intimately spiritual sons and daughters, or at least enough to raise them up step by step. There has to be small groups. Okay, and this is an apostolic necessity. It says in Acts chapter 2 that they met publicly and from house to house. Paul, again in Acts chapter 20, says it again. He says, I never withheld anything from you. In verse 20, when I met with you publicly and from house to house, I met with you in the larger tribal gathering, but I also met with you in the family gathering. I was a spiritual father on a personal level, not just on a public level. And so we need to be able to have both those dynamics if we want to build a truly apostolic church, because there has to be a context within which spiritual mothers and fathers can actually imprint, where they can actually equip on a personal, where they can actually disciple, where they can actually develop individuals into the fullness of their God-given calling. And this is why we would use the term that every church needs to be a destiny incubator. And the way that incubation takes place is within the context of small groups. And so we encourage the building of dynamic small groups that really become multi-generational developmental families that raise up sons and daughters and send them out to pioneer new small groups that will continue the process of individual development and also grow the kingdom dynamic within the church, because we keep multiplying new ministries through this multiplication process of developing sons and daughters into full maturity and then sending them out to do the same to the next generation. So this is apostolic family. There's so much more that can be said about that, but this is strategy number 4. We build small groups that incubate personal destiny in the same way that a good mother and father in a local family, in a biological family, would be looking at their sons and daughters, trying to help identify their God-given calling and purpose, and then to help them create a life map to become the person that God's called them to be, so they can fulfill God's eternal purpose for each person.